Welcome, everybody. My name is Rob Sutherland. I am from NECN. I am one of the trustees. And this afternoon, whatever time you're watching this, we're going to be talking with Tracey. Tracey, would you like to introduce yourself?
Well, my name's Tracey Rawlins. I'm a community development worker for a team of Anglican churches in Wythenshawe, which is a massive council estate on the edge of South Manchester, right near Manchester Airport. And I've been doing this role for 7 years this month. So, yeah, quite a while now.
Fantastic. So what have you been getting up to in Wythenshawe?
So we kind of talk to our community about what kind of things they feel the church could help them with. And the big focus for us, because of the demographic of the communities that I live and work in, is very much around alleviating poverty. And in particular, it won't surprise you to know that in the last 5 years, but particularly in the last year, that's been a massive focus around food poverty in particular. So things like providing food during school holidays, supporting people to access food banks, increasing what we offer in terms of provision for food from food bank to community grocery scheme, and through that then looking at how we can outreach and talk about the work that we do as a church, and what our different relationships are and attitudes around being Christians in Wythenshawe.
Okay, that sounds very integrated, for want of a better word. How's that working out?
It's hit and miss. There's only me as a community development worker, and I'm part-time, but I have lived here for many, many years. So probably have an advantage that I'm quite well known in the community. So for me, that's a way of being accountable as well, because if I don't do a good job, everyone's going to tell me when I go shopping on a Saturday. I'm very accountable day to day, which is really useful actually. So very often we've got a core of families that will use several things that we do. So in pre-pandemic times, we'd have things like place of welcome, coffee mornings, clubs where people could get together. We'd do Christmas parties, community lunches. Obviously, all of that's changed now. And we're kind of operating almost delivery systems, if you like, where people can get extra food to help in school holidays. We used to have open access breakfast clubs, where people could come, have breakfast together, do a bit of craft, and then go home again. None of that's happening at the moment. But the way that we could bring in kind of what our Christian message is in that is that we will usually choose 1 week a year where we don't rely on public funding to fund our craft activities, but the churches will pay for that. So as an example, this Christmas, alongside a food parcel for Christmas holidays to help with breakfast items and things, everybody got a Christingle in a bag. With all the ingredients to make their Christingle and some literature. And then we did a video, bit like Bleep Blue Peter, here's what I made earlier. And we talked about the nativity and encouraged people to make a Christingle along with us through Facebook. And that has worked pretty well, actually. And we've used that method again for Holy Week just gone. So we did a craft pack, which was Holy Week in a bag, an activity and a Bible story for each day of Holy Week. And then we had a get together on Zoom at the end of Holy Week. And people shared what they've made. There's no obligation to kind of join in with that, but it's about invitation and repeated invitation. Yeah. So we'll find that people will join in, maybe on the edges a little bit of the things that they think are okay to be seen to be doing. So that might be a carol service, it might be Easter, Mother's Day, those kind of traditional calendar events where we know people that don't attend weekly but will come to that. And then we'll build that up again when we're back to face-to-face groups. So we might look at doing some kind of fresh expression around, not a Bible study, but a kind of talk about what's God doing in this pandemic anyway. I mean, I'm sure we've all been asked that thousands of times in the last year, why is God letting this happen? So there are opportunities to talk to people when they're queuing for their groceries once a week or in the food bank queue. You can have those socially distanced conversations at a light touch and just being open to the fact that people will know when they can come and ask you more questions.
Yeah, that sounds like a real 7 days a week faith rather than something we do on Sundays. How's it been perceived in the community? How have people reacted to what you've been doing for the last year?
I think we've been very blessed by the fact that we found that although on paper we're working with people that have very little, people are very generous and they'll give. If they can't give financially, they'll bring in extra tins or packets for the food donations. But also actually we found that local businesses have been very keen to support where they can, even though they may have had staff on furlough. We've had staff wanting to volunteer, for example, because they've got extra time. And at Christmas time particularly, where businesses weren't spending on things like staff parties or gifts for corporate clients, they were bringing us, carloads of groceries and chocolates and Christmas goods. So that's all worked out really well, actually. We've had a really good positive engagement with people in a different way that I think without the pandemic we might not have. They've sought us out rather than us going to them, which I think has been interesting to see that dynamic play out.
Yeah. We've done some work around food poverty in my parish as well, and I was worried that it was going to be seen as us judging people because we were helping out, and what I found was that because the church has been there for so long, it's part of the community and it is seen as being, we are helping our own, and that is a very different concept to the government are sticking a plaster on it. And I found that was a real eye-opener for me. I mean, I've been vicar here for 8.5 years now. Is it really that long? Yeah, I've been vicar here for 8.5 years now, and it's like I'm part of the fixtures and fittings. People know me because I stand in the queue at Morrison's and so on. And yeah.
And that's the key. I think it's about being able and open to sharing your own story. So there's like a massive team of volunteers, but we all have connections. We're all local, so everybody knows I'm really open about the fact that, my job's only safe for as long as we've got the money. And actually, I might be 2 pay packets away from using that food bank or that facility as much as the person that's next to me in the queue. So we're very open about that, and don't hide from that at all. And I think people appreciate that. Their kids have gone to school with my kids when they were younger. There's all of those connections, and in being able to say, your story is your story, but actually I can kind of understand some of it because 10 years ago when I was a single parent, for example, I went through this. I know what it's like to be counting your last pennies because your kids need shoes. Those are real stories that we each have, and there is not that sense of those coming in to tell us, Paul, what we really need. We're living it together. We're struggling each day. We've all gone to the supermarket and found that there's been no toilet roll and all of the other things, and prices have gone up. We've seen that, and those conversations are still happening.
Yeah, I think there is a temptation, particularly in the media, to paint everybody who's working class as one kind of person. And I know that my story is a completely different. I know I'm working in an estate, but I come from a mining town. A pit village is where I'm from, and grew up as a miner's lad. And that is not anybody around here's experience. Nobody around here is a miner's lad, but those experiences are similar, and it's the way we connect our stories to each other. I love the word story. I used to hate it. I used to think that it's sort of like a fiction, whereas now I love the word story. I connect my story to God's story, and I connect my story to my church warden's story, and she is the secretary of a pigeon racing club, and I now have lots of knowledge about pigeon racing. I had no knowledge whatsoever about pigeon racing when I arrived here as the vicar, and now I know all sorts about pigeon racing because we have stories that interconnect with each other around the common things that we have, like there was no toilet roll a year ago.
Yeah,
it's interesting that we're talking about these things a year later. We're now talking about, remember a year ago, and it's because we haven't really seen anybody for a year. So now we're going, remember when there was no toilet roll in the supermarket? Yeah, I do. So what are you planning to do moving into the future?
There's no getting away from the fact that for a lot of this, it will be more of the same. So we are still going to need our food bank. Because we're on the edge of the airport, there are likely to be a lot more people either not being taken back on when furlough ends in September or losing their jobs until aviation gets back up and running. It's a massive employer for us, but it's also an employer that's very often about low paid jobs, 0 hours contracts, and we do what we can to lobby against that. Obviously, we're not a fan of that at all, but we have to accept that that's the situation people are in. So actually, we anticipate that our food bank use might go up. We anticipate that the number of members joining our bread and butter scheme that we have might go up. So it's being ready for that and being able to accommodate that surge if it happens. And then also looking at the fact that at some point, this well of generosity that we've seen over the last year, which has been massive and not anticipated in any way, shape or form by the food bank of which I'm a trustee, That might stop because the money isn't going to be around. And, I have that concern about my own post in terms of how charities and trusts are going to look at reprofiling what they fund. There's been, again, lots of funding around to get us through this, but what's the knock-on effect of that going forward? I guess there's a worry. But what we'll do when we're allowed to kind of meet safely in bigger groups and stuff is we will ask people what we've done over the last year, which bits have been helpful. Some people will want to continue online support, I've no doubt about that. So it's about how we do a hybrid of offering some online get-togethers for some people. Got a lot of single parents, for example. We found that a monthly evening Zoom sort of catch-up has been quite helpful because the kids have gone to bed, you've got no one to talk to. Having that half an hour to connect with your cup of coffee has been quite useful. We'll probably keep that going. So it's looking at what have we learned. Never even knew what Zoom was a year ago. Thought I might have a job a year ago, assumed I'd be furloughed. How wrong I was. I could have worked twice the amount of hours that I do. So it's kind of like almost going back to the drawing board and saying, what is it you now need? What is it we can do together for this community to help you through the next bit? We anticipate there will be a lot of extra support needed around mental health and well-being, and that might be increasing the amount of opportunities for people to come together safely, have that cup of tea. There's nervousness around about going back out. It's not, oh, quick, let's all get to the pub. That's not going on for us. It's like, well, I might come, I'll see how I feel, see when I get my next vaccine. It's about some of those positive messages and encouraging people to feel safe. So it'll be a gradual return to face-to-face, I think, so that people feel safe and that we're on a journey together. Stories, journeys, it's those buzzwords again, isn't it? But I think it's important because you do walk down a road with someone. It's not, we're doing this and I expect you to come. It's like, what will work for you? What can we change? So it'll be very gradual, I think, testing the waters and seeing what people are asking for.
That is such an important question, though, and it's often the one that is missed, particularly by local authority, national government, is what are you actually looking for? What would be the thing that would make life better here in your community? And we so often get people coming from the outside and trying to put on a sticking plaster, and it's those consultations, I suppose, is the posh way we talk about it, innit? The consultation, what is actually going on in your community, what would actually make your community better, what is needed, and it's a really important question for us, particularly for the church, I think,
and also celebrating what we've achieved. So you've got through this, you've still got your kids through school, it's been really hard, but we've got through it together, and celebrating that. I know, again, we look at it from an asset-based approach now, don't we, rather than a deficit, but actually there's so much good stuff to look at and focus on and celebrate that we need to do some of that, I think, and acknowledge that, because it'll get lost in the next round of what do we need to achieve, how many people have we seen, and we've moved away from that, and I think we just need to capture some of that positive stuff and breathe a bit of a, oh, well, we've got there, but also this is a new kind of way of life. And the 21st of June, assuming the roadmap goes to plan, it doesn't mean that all of this goes away. It's still going to be around for a very long time. And I think there's a little bit of almost thinking, oh, we'll press the button on the 21st of June and it'll all be great. It's not going to change that quickly, I don't think. And for people in our community, we've been consulted to death since 1990 when I first moved here, with so many different regeneration projects. They're not interested, and they'll tell us if we're not doing it right. So actually we might as well have the conversation from the start, because they'll just vote with their feet and not come and not engage if we don't talk to them from the outset. So that's something we've built into what we do right from the start, really, because I've been the gobby one before now that's gone, you've not done this right, and another thing. So actually you've got to learn from that, haven't you, and be ready for that criticism, but in a constructive way. So I'm up for it. I'm up for the challenge, because it's not about me. I could leave tomorrow and I know that this work is so embedded, it would continue in some way, shape or form.
Absolutely fantastic. Well, it has been an absolute pleasure talking to you this morning. For us, it's this morning. For other people, they're probably watching this at 2 o'clock in the morning. But it's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you this morning about what you're doing over in Wythenshawe. I will leave all of the links that you're going to send me in an email, I'm sure. I'll leave them all in the description to this video. And while I'm at it, I will tell everybody that if you want more information about NECN, you can find us on our website. You can also like this video, you can subscribe to our channel, and you can ring the bell and you'll get a notification whenever we have anything else going up on our YouTube channel. Thank you very much for joining us. I've been Rob Sutherland. I'm one of the trustees at NECN, the National Estates Church Network, and this is Tracey Rawlins. Thank you very much, Tracey.
Thank you.
Bless you. Bye-bye.
Bye.